Yo guys, what's going on? Got a D Reaper deck profile for the EX2 format. This is probably one of the most anticipated, or probably one of the most feared decks going into this format, I think. Now, as far as how crazy it'll be in comparison to the other decks in the format, that's still to be seen, I think. I've tested out a little bit, but not really enough to say conclusively. But what I will say is that the deck is a very, very unconventional deck. So if you want something different to play out of the new set that is, I want to say, relatively cheap to build. I don't think any of the cards in the D Reaper archetype are like hollows or anything. Then I would probably recommend this deck for you. It also plays a little bit like Security Control, so if you like a slower paced deck, this is definitely the one. So to go ahead and get started, you'll see I've got 20 copies of ADR02 Searcher. So first of all, of course, the reason that there's 20 copies in this deck is because you can include up to 50 copies with this card's number in your deck. So you can play as many copies of Searcher as you want. You could play 50 Searchers if you want to just meme, I guess. But what this card does is two main things. So first of all, you can reduce its play cost by 2 if you don't have another Searcher in play. So if it's like your first turn, or if you had already used your Mother D Reaper's effect to suck up a Searcher underneath, you can play him for a cost of 1. Now, he can't attack players. This Digimon is pretty much useless as a actual Digimon, but really it's just here for a draw engine. On play, draw 1, simple and clean effect. You are playing basically 20 copies of a upstart goblin in your deck. You're playing 20 draw 1s, and then of course its inherited effect is your turn. All of your Digimon with D Reaper in their traits gain plus 1000 DP. So that's another really cool passive effect. You can stick a ton of these underneath your Mother D Reaper, so you can end up boosting your dudes pretty high. Now, this is also important for feeding your Mother D Reaper, like I mentioned. That is kind of both the boss monster and the Digi Egg of this deck. So this is actually a Digitama. Only playing the one copy here, you can play more if you'd like, but there's not really a point. But what this card does is, first of all, this card can't attack, and it cannot be affected by your opponent's effects. So it's essentially uninteractable. And then during your turn, once per turn, if you don't have another Mother D Reaper in play, you can basically only control one of these Digitamas. You can place a Searcher in play or from your hand underneath its Digivolution card. So you're basically, every single turn, you're going to play Searcher and then suck up one to get the extra material on Mother D Reaper. And then during your turn, once per turn, you can also reduce the play cost of a D Reaper from your hand once per turn for each Digivolution card in this, and that this Digitama has. So if you've got 10 Searchers underneath, you can basically play everything in the deck for free. So really, really cool effect. Of course, that being once per turn is important. But so Searcher is important for both of those aspects. Not only as your draw engine, because you're not digivolving in this deck, since everything is white and void of levels. If you notice, all the D Reaper Digimon have this level dash here. They don't have levels. So that's cool for a couple reasons. First of all, you can't digivolve onto them or from them, so there's no digivolving in this deck. It kind of gives you the feel that these aren't really Digimon, even though for logistic purposes they are treated as Digimon. However, it also makes it so that your opponent can't interact with them via level-based effects. So, for example, something like a Lydramon, suspend a level 4 or lower Digimon, well, that wouldn't actually work against this deck. Something like a Mastamon, where you're maybe playing a Lucemon off of it, pop a level 6 or lower, pop a level 5 or lower, does not actually interact with any of these cards. So that's kind of cool. Who knows what effects that will have on the meta, but anyways, so for the other cards, the other portions in the deck, of course, playing 4 copies of Pendulum Feet. This guy is one of the better Searchers. You are maximizing on the Searchers, I think, in this deck because you need the consistency. Reveal top 3, add a Digimon with D Reaper and 1 Searcher amongst those, and then put the rest back at the bottom. So simple and clean effect. Searches any of the cards in the deck, including himself, and then, of course, one of your many copies of the Searcher because you do need those for your strategy. Then we got ADR4 Bubbles. He's got a security effect where it just lets you put a Searcher from your hand at the bottom of a Mother D Reaper. So this kind of just helps you speed up your process of just getting to 7 or more materials underneath your Mother D Reaper, and I'll kind of explain why you want 7 or more in a little bit. And then his on play is the exact same as the security effect, so just on play and then stick something underneath. And so a card like this, while very valuable, in terms of card advantage, you're losing 2 cards just to stick something underneath. So that's why I think you need to play as many draw cards and as many like of the in archetype searchers as possible. And then speaking of that, we've got 4 copies of Jerry. So main, by suspending this Digimon, you can reveal the top 5 cards of your deck and then place a searcher underneath one of your Mother D Reapers from those revealed cards. So again, speeding up that process, because while you do want to build up your Mother D Reapers materials, it can take quite a long time in a lot of decks like Imperial Dramon or, I don't know, maybe Jessamon. You know, the more aggressive decks of the format can really take advantage of the fact that you require so much setup time, so you definitely need these cards to help speed the deck up. And then 3 copies of Creep Hands. This guy is essentially just the blocker of the deck, 5 cost blocker. Unfortunately, you can't evolve him, so you have to just either hard play him for 5 or hard play him for a reduced cost via the Mother D Reapers effect. So 3 copies of that blocker, and then for the really broken cards, okay, so these are the boss monsters of the deck for sure. So 4 copies of Gatekeeper. This guy has 3 crazy effects. So it is a 11 cost. Keep that in mind, pretty hefty cost, but of course being able to reduce the cost with Mother D Reaper is really broken. So security effect, you just play this card without battling and without paying the memory cost. So just instant for free, like bring it out. And then on play, if you got Mother D Reaper, you get to just recover 1. So it's a Magna Angemon that you get to play for free off of your security, or worst case, you play it for a reduced cost off of your Mother D Reaper. When you get to like 6-7 materials, you can play this guy for like a 4-5 cost. It's really crazy. And then of course, for some reason, he's got another really oppressive effect where during your opponent's turn, when your Mother D Reaper has 6 or more sources, all of your opponent's Digimon get security attack -1. So that is a blanket effect. Even if your opponent Jogresses, if they Digivolve into a hybrid, it still applies. It's the same thing as like Holy Flame. So having this card just to be able to prevent lethal and prevent your opponent from basically touching your security unless they're playing like a red deck or have like a Fire Rocket or something. This is really crazy, especially when you can get multiple of this card onto the field at the same time. And you know, the fact that it has a security effect means even if it's in your security, your opponent hits it, you just get another Magna Angemon that also floodgates your opponent. So possibly stacking that -1 security attack effect. So Gatekeeper, just an absolute crazy card. Okay, so now you might be wondering, well, this deck seems cool and all, but it's really slow, doesn't really have a lot of removal. What's its win condition? So the win condition, guys, is the Reaper. So this is a 20 cost 15,000 Digimon. So when you would play this card from your hand, you may trash 7 or more Digivolution cards from the bottom of your Mother D Reapers to make this cost, or to reduce this cost to 0. So you're effectively playing this card for 0 late game when you've got 7 or more materials underneath your Mother D Reaper. It's of course got the rush keyword, so you're playing a 0 cost 15,000 DP rush Digimon, and then when attacking, you may play 2 searchers, or place 2 searchers from your trash underneath this Digimon as Digivolution cards in order to unsuspend this Digimon. So the basic setup goes where you'll have Mother D Reaper with, let's say, 8 materials for, you know, in this case maybe you've resolved like a Jerry or something. So you've got 8 materials, you trash all of those 8 materials, play Reaper for 0, and then you attack immediately with Reaper, and then you use Reaper's effect to put 2 of the materials you just trashed from the Mother D Reaper underneath them, and then unsuspend them. So that's 1 attack, and then an additional extra attack for each 2 materials. So you're looking at 5 checks there, just for a 0 cost Digimon at 15,000. So really crazy stuff there, but of course it does take some time to set up. So that's kind of both the crutch and the cool part about this deck, because the crutch is that you can definitely lose the game before those, if you've got the 7-8 materials underneath your Mother D Reaper. But if you are able to stall to that point, you can go into this guy and you've got a really solid win condition there. And then of course for the other cards, the option cards and tamers, I am playing 4 copies of Spiral Masquerade. The reason why is because you're spamming the board quite a bit with your Digimon and not really ever attacking, so it's kind of up to your opponent to get rid of your Digimon. A lot of times you can go into multiple searches a turn for like a 1 cost or a 3 cost, very cheap stuff, and then you're leaving like your Jerry in play, you're leaving your Creep Hands in play. So sometimes you can get up to 3, 4, 5 Digimon in play, and if your opponent doesn't get rid of any of them, you can Spiral Masquerade to just blow up the field. It slows down the game and then just gets rid of your opponent's board until you can like just start building up your resources until you can go into a Reaper. So Spiral Masquerade, I mean, this card's just crazy. Now, one thing I do want to keep in mind with you guys is this card reduces your opponent's Digimon by -3,000 for each of your Digimon in play. So it does not count Mother D Reaper. Any effect that references you having a Digimon or your opponent, you know, vice versa for your opponent as well. Mother D Reaper is a Digitama, is a Digi-Egg. So this doesn't count for Spiral Masquerade. It doesn't count it. Okay. So that's just one interaction you probably need to keep in mind. And then for the Tamers, are playing 2 copies of TK Kari and then 3 copies of the Memory Setter Kari, because you do need a Memory Tamer. Yellow's solid, especially pairing it with Spiral Masquerade there. And then being able to suspend her to gain memory off of the Recover from Gatekeeper is a cool interaction as well. And then TK Kari also to kind of deter your opponent from just swinging at your security blindly, so you'll be able to gain that extra memory, because a lot of your stuff is kind of a high play cost, at least as far as like the Gatekeeper and the Creep Hands and stuff goes. But anyways, guys, yeah, that is the deck. You're not really playing too many Digimon because half of your deck is the Searcher here. But let me know what you think down in the comments of the D Reaper deck. Are you excited to play against it? Are you not looking forward to playing against it? Let me know what you think, and hopefully you enjoyed it. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you next time.